Hello and welcome to the We All Follow the Arsenal podcast, a new podcast, all things Arsenal, previewing, reviewing, and assessing really what is going on at our beloved club right now. I am Jack, otherwise or formerly known as the Plug AFC of Arsenal Fan TV, and with me is George Lee, a fellow Gooner who is a die-hard Arsenal fan. George, what has made you an Arsenal fan? What brought you to love this club?
Well, I was sort of born into it, like most of us. My dad's dad, etc. All mad Arsenal fans. So it was something that just sort of happened. My middle name's Henry, so there you go. Just mad Arsenal. Always have been, always will be. What about you?
So, as everyone knows from my Highbury Days video from Young Guns and also from what we saw said on FTV, I was born into an Arsenal loving family. Funny enough, a funny story for you, and I referenced this on the Clock End Talk podcast. But when I was a baby, obviously, as people know, it's a tradition in the UK and probably in other parts of the world as well, that when you're born, there's a picture of your sibling in the cot. And when I was born, my dad put a picture of none other than Nwankwo Kanu in the cot. Something which the nurses were very confused about. Obviously, I don't bear any resemblance to Kanu. And yeah, so from that moment, obviously, from the moment I was born, Arsenal was always pushed into me, essentially. And my first game was, and the reason why is probably that I am the fan that I am, is that my first game was the 4-2 at home to Liverpool in the Invincible season, which is arguably one of the most important games in Arsenal's history, based on the kind of turnaround that it caused in terms of our season, obviously losing in the FA Cup and Champions League to United and Chelsea that week, and what looked like it was going to be a damned season going down to Liverpool at home. Obviously, completely got overturned by an Henry hat-trick. And yeah, that was history.
Big Henry hat-trick.
And to the extent that my first memory was coming face to face with the gates of Highbury, which is something which it's breathtaking if you think about it. But yeah,
what a stadium! What a stadium!
And then, so George, when did you first become a season ticket holder?
Well, I went to my first game when I was, I think, a year and a half. My dad always used to put me on his shoulders.
God, I was 4.
Yeah, I'm a die hard. But I would say my first proper memory, not watching obviously Premier League years, would be the FA Cup final 2005. I went
United
to
and Millennium.
Yeah, I went to the Millennium Stadium, and that was a very, very good day. Although we absolutely did not deserve to win that game. So also it was Vieira's last kick in an Arsenal shirt, so that was a big
Scoring
time.
the winning penalty.
Absolutely. Say your question again, Jack.
So when did you first become a season ticket holder?
Well, basically, as we all know, miraculously, the Arsenal have an absolutely huge waiting list. So my dad's been a season ticket holder for about 25 years. But he put us on there at the age of 7 on the waiting list, and we didn't get our season tickets till 2 seasons ago. So officially, I've been a season ticket holder for 2 years, but
Jesus.
I've been consistently going to games. I was a junior gunner, so we'd always sit in the family enclosure for, I would say, about 5-6 seasons now.
So for myself, I've been a home season ticket holder since the day we moved into the Emirates. And after a gruelingly long wait list, the beginning of last season was my first as a member of the away scheme. Probably one of the best things I've ever been given was that by my dad. Absolutely loved every minute of it. I mean, bar the fact obviously that maybe the amount of results we've had away from home have not been that solid since. It's been worth every penny.
My away days haven't been too vast, but I do remember a horrible away day to Wigan where we drew 1-1, and I think it was a Squillaci own goal back in the day. Not a good day to be an Arsenal fan.
Funny how your awful away days are draws. I was at the 6-3 away at City back in the day. I've been to some shockers. I've been to some absolute annihilations.
I'm sure.
I remember the worst one was I can't even remember how old I was saying. It was around my birthday. It was the Ozil's first season, and yeah, so I obviously would have been my 14th. And I'll never forget. I went up to Goodison Park. That was the first time I went there and saw a 3-0 demolition by them of us. I remember Naismith scoring and just thinking, what on earth is
Oh,
happening? Yeah. So we were just
awful.
awful. We were absolutely diabolical that day. I'll never forget that. But anyway, so moving on from obviously our status as Arsenal members. So just to let the listeners know, me and George are good friends. We are both obviously big Arsenal fans. However, we have in some ways we agree in terms of our views, but we also have a lot of heated discussions in terms of our opinions on the club or how the club should be moving forward, or even opinions on certain players and coaches and basically the whole structure of the club. Anything about the club, we do seem to argue about quite a lot because we're very differing viewpoints. And having a lot of these debates on phone calls after games and whatnot over the last year, it's been in the pipeline for quite a while that we'd like to start a podcast, and that brings us to today, which is obviously the first of We'll Follow the Arsenal, the newest Arsenal podcast around. And just to give you guys a bit of an insight of what we've got planned coming up, we have obviously we're gonna have debates, we're gonna discuss all things Arsenal. As I said in the introduction, we're gonna review, we're gonna preview, etc. We're also gonna have guests come onto the show. These guests will consist of people who are already known within the kind of Arsenal sort of media, sort of like fan networks and other podcasts and whatnot. We're also going to have people who work in the realms of football who are going to come on and give an insight into how things are done. So, for example, one thing we do want to do is we want to give is to speak about more of understanding over how transfers are done and essentially how football's run behind the scenes, as well as obviously reviewing Arsenal and whatnot. So, in a sense, try and clear up some confusion, which has caused a lot of debate and heated arguments, obviously, on Twitter when the understanding hasn't been there. Obviously, we'll get people to come and help with that. Adding to that, obviously, when we have a big game up, like against a derby, for example, like a Spurs or a Chelsea or United or whatnot, we're going to bring in some friends of ours to come on the podcast, because one thing that we see a demand for is the sort of the chemistry that friends have or people that know each other have in terms of when it's debating football can make it obviously a bit more humorous, and it's obviously more entertaining for the viewers rather than being more like a debate on football. It would just be funny, won't it? So obviously, and yeah, so it's going to be it's going to be a lot of different kind of segments on this podcast. But what we're going to do today in the first one is we're going to discuss the following topics. We're going to discuss obviously why we've have Arsenal, as we said before, but we're going to speak about our season so far. We're going to speak about Manchester City away and our transfer window that's just gone, along with previewing for Huddersfield away this coming Saturday, which I believe is a 3 p.m. kickoff in Huddersfield.
You are correct. It is
against the Terriers. So basically, obviously this has been a sort of introduction so far. So now we're going to move on to our season so far. So George, obviously the season's been it's been very unexpected at Arsenal Football Club.
You expected it.
I expect we're going to put that sort of stuff behind. But so Arsene Wenger departed us at the end of last season, leaving some shocked. Some felt that it was need for due change. I know George was a very, very heavy Wenger out. And a new era dawned at Arsenal, an era which saw promise with men like Raul Sanelli, Sven Mittelstadt, Pius Fami, and obviously Ivan Gazidis. Unexpected that he was to depart the club in the months following onwards. So in May, we obviously heard that Emery would be becoming the club head coach, and we were discussed by Gazidis at the press conference the structure of which they wanted Arsenal to follow suit, and how they wanted to bring in a more of a European approach. Obviously, have a head coach and have a sort of like a director of football, and have a system where everything is done in sections, rather than how in the Arsene days, Arsene did more or less everything. We now have set people for set positions. And obviously leaving with Arsene Wenger was a lot of old timers, such as the negotiator Dick Law, who doesn't have the greatest of reputations due to some of the deals that he pushed over the line, being our ex-chief negotiator. Along with that, a lot of club legends, club coaches, so the new era dawned by a loss against Manchester City 2-0 at the beginning of the season. However, everything seemed very bright. The news broke about Ivan Gazidis leaving to AC Milan, which didn't unstable this ship at all. But Gazidis still had a lot of stick given by the fan base. And we were just told about this whole structure where it was going to be Sinelli, Sven, and Unai. And obviously, the news has come through that Sven has left the club due to him being sacked by the club due to issues between him and Raul Sinelli. And this kind of new bullish structure of the club has been seen. I mean, you can see in the transfer window just gone, as we'll get to soon, how we dealt with Perisic, how we're not as relaxed with others. We're a lot more bullish in how we operate on a more of a business spectrum. Something we needed for a long time, especially with a lot of the contract issues that we've had recently. But George, the season so far, as you know, started off. The Chelsea game was a bit of a weird one because you felt like we didn't convert our chances. However, we had enough chances and you could see the direction we were going to move in and how it was promising. And then we went on our 22-game streak. And then obviously we've been rough since. Now, George, what has been your take on the season so far? What would say have been your highlights? And what have impressed you about Unai Emery and the new reformed Arsenal Football Club?
Well, to me, I mean, obviously after 22 years of Wenger, as you know, I was a massive Wenger out on that party. For me, it was time for change. We needed a whole restructuring from top to bottom of our club. And it looks like, in terms of the business model, we're just coming to grips with that now. I mean, obviously, Sven leaving, to me, although obviously a great scout, bought in Guendouzi for 8 million, bought in Torreira for 22 million. Clearly, he's not what Raul wanted. Now, it was, if I'm right, it was Gazidis that hired both Raul and Sven, but now Raul is in charge, which means he can choose who he wants, and he doesn't want Sven, so he got rid of Sven. So, I agree. I'm sort of on the wavelength that I think that, look, I trust Raul. He's got contacts throughout the whole world, and I trust him to make the right decisions, which it looks like he's doing. In terms of the football and the coaching side, just a little bit of a background. I do coaching. I'm getting my FA level 1 at the minute. So I'm very hot on how Unai coaches the team. Now,
just really quickly to add to what George just said about him and his obviously views of coaching. One of the reasons we thought this podcast would be a great thing to do is I myself am studying sports business with sports law at UCFB, which is the University Campus of Football Business based in Wembley Stadium with other branches at the Etihad and Turf Moor. So essentially we're studying basically the two main sort of spectrums that are within a football club. Obviously me within the business structure of it, and George obviously with the actual playing coaching side of it. So yeah, sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to lay it out so the listeners.
No, don't worry. I'm also studying sports science and will be starting in September at University of Birmingham. So I'm looking at it from a physiological point of view, whereas Jack is looking at it from more of a business structure. But as I was saying, in terms of the coaching, I quite like what Unai's done so far. I mean, obviously, it's a difficult job because, in my opinion, the squad that Wenger left him was just below par. It just wasn't good enough. So, to me, in my opinion, what he's done so far with the squad that he has is probably the most he's going to get. I mean, if you compare the stats in the league from his first season, if you compare that to Pep's first season and Conte's first season at Chelsea, and obviously Poch's first season at Spurs, I'm pretty sure, if I'm correct, that he has more points than them at this stage currently. So to me, he's not done that much wrong. Obviously, there are a few personnel decisions that I disagree with along the way, but overall, I think he has done quite a good job so far. Obviously, we want to be competing with the big boys, but firstly, financially, at the minute, due to what Wenger and Gazidis left, we're not there. And also the caliber of players that he has, if you compare it to United, City, in some regards Spurs with their first 11, maybe not their squad, and Liverpool, we are nowhere near that level. So to be fighting out with Liverpool, with Chelsea, Spurs, and United, more Chelsea and United, we're doing quite a good job in my opinion.
We're massively overachieving compared to where we all thought we would be.
Absolutely.
And I think also in the sense that a lot of our fans, because of the 22-game unbeaten streak, have lost sight of what the season is, and that's a transition season. I think that a lot of fans are very quick to go and cuss off Unai, cuss off the system, the lack of money, without really thinking about what's gone on and why. Like, for example, one thing that's been overlooked massively is that everyone's saying that the players, that it's disgraceful how United doesn't necessarily rate certain players. And for the record, I'm not referring to Mesut Ozil at all, as I'll get onto him later on. However, people need to realise that United's team selections will be wrong at times this season. He doesn't know his best 11 yet. He doesn't know who he likes to bring off the bench, who he thinks is an impact sub, who's an impact sub in what area. He doesn't know. Essentially, one thing I think is the whole point of the 5 captains he set at the beginning, and I understand his whole point about having capped a different part of the pitch. But if you think about it, he also doesn't know who the leader in the team is. Yes, people can, less like, for example, and as a hypothetical, some random guy sitting in whatever in the Emirates can say, oh, well, it's clear that he should be the leader. That's not the case because he doesn't see how that player acts in training and whatnot every single day. United does. And as seen with someone like Jurgen Klopp, when he came in, his first season was iffy. And people, because of this unbeaten run where some people, despite the fact they won't admit it, did think, for God, we're going to win the league, when clearly we weren't. That high expectation has caused quite a spoilt reaction from the Arsenal fan base.
Oh,
and I'm not trying to be rude about the fans at all, but everyone's like, we're Arsenal Football Club. I know we're Arsenal Football Club, but we haven't won a title since 2003, 2004. And the last time we got in the Champions League final was 2006. Are we a big club? 100%. Are we a club in form? No, we're not. We are. And this is not against Arsene or the old structure at all, but are we a club on the decline? Yes.
Well, I feel like we would
But that's only because, and it's one thing we are going to address in a podcast soon, and it's that the argument that we moved to the Emirates to compete with the best, because it's one of the most overlooked, naive points that one can make, simply because the model of which sports business income changed over those periods of why we aren't. So, for example, just to give a quick point, ticket revenue was the most important thing that clubs would receive in terms of their income. Then, when we decided to build the stadium, when the stadium was completed, it was not even in the top 5. So it's like we have been unlucky, but
surely the way I look at it is, surely the people at the top would sort of be able to foresee that, to realise that maybe that is going to change, and maybe now's not the right time to build the stadium. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't.
Anyways, I don't want to go into all this sort of stuff now because that will come in a following podcast. But as I said, I do feel like as a fan base, we are quite spoiled because of that unbeaten run.
And also the injuries that we've received in vital areas. I mean, you don't have to be a genius to work out that our strike force is actually quite decent, but
I'd say our strike force is one of the best in the league, without a doubt.
Yeah, and where we're lacking really is at the back, and to get injuries to key players in this system, especially that Emery wants to play, like Rob Holding, who is probably our best defender in terms of how he distributes the ball out from the back, and Bellerin, who gives us that width, and he gives us the ability to get sort of the ball through their centre back and full back, and to deliver low crosses, which have been successful in the first part of the season.
Arguably one of our best players this season is Hector Bellerin.
Well, I'd say definitely one of our most improved players this season.
Him and Iwobi.
Yeah. But for them to be injured, and also Danny Welbeck to all get season-long injuries, that cuts quite a lot from our squad and our depth of our squad. And at the same time, as I said before, our defence wasn't very good anyway. So to take Holding and Bellerin out of our defence completely, we were already on the back turn. So although I understand the argument of what is Emery doing to coach these players, well, when your defence is changing week by week, it's very, very difficult to install any sort of grounding for improvement. And so I think he's got a very difficult job there, which I'm sure in the summer we'll see a lot of outgoings and incomings because he wants to get it right. But I think so far, so good, in my opinion.
So one thing that I want to add to that is that the one bonus essentially that we've seen with this season is the way that also we were so badly hit with Rob Holding, is the players that we've lost to cruciate ligament damage. That's not something that can be anticipated. It's not, and it's something which it does kind of spring up upon you. However, before we lost Rob in particular, our defence was not that bad. We were a lot more solid at the back. However, it shows how important Rob Holding is to our structure of play, because obviously we've seen Unai Emery, and I'm sure George will be able to add to this bit, bear in mind what he studies. We play with Unai a playing out from the back method of play, where essentially what the aim was with Rob is that Leno would give the ball to Holding, who would push it on to Xhaka, who, can I say, is one of the most important players for us on the pitch in terms of us going forward, despite the fact some may not see it in terms of the way the structure works. And it'll kind of be Xhaka to maybe Torreira, but normally direct to someone like Ozil, who would then be able to, or Iwobi, who would then push it. So basically, Iwobi would be an intermediate step between Xhaka and Ozil in some cases. And Ozil would feed the ball off to Aubameyang or Lacazette, who then would be through on goal and we score. The issue with losing someone like Rob, that's the plan. That's the plan.
That's the perfect model.
And the issue that we've had is that neither Socrates nor Koscielny nor Mustafi, any of them, are ball-carrying centre-backs. So I'm not sure which of the listeners get to watch any of the under-21, under-23 games. But the under-23s, the style of play they play is a lot different, and there's a much greater new style of football kind of coming out through the academy. So where you'd have the sort of like the more Carl Jenkinson-esque right backs, they're now short, pacey wingers, basically wingers who have been modified into a right back, because the game now is basically using pace on the sides, but with a kind of a strength and solidity in the middle. So it's kind of using the old style of play where it was a lot more physical, with now which is significantly more athletic. Someone like Rob Holding is the sort of player which is a prime example, whereas young centre backs have come through the system and essentially have been taught to use their feet more like a central midfielder would, in a way, if you think about it, to be as good as on the ball as they are, rather than being a big man to put in a sliding challenge or a header. And the reason Rob is so vital for that system is that he's excellent on the ball and he's a lot more comfortable in passing. So, for example, the reason we're so weak at the back now is because that gap between the defence and someone like Xhaka or Torreira, there's not somebody who feels comfortable passing the ball. And I know people will say, oh, it's passing the ball, it's a simple logic in football. No, it's not. Because it takes a lot of one's mentality to be able to put in the perfect pass and get the attack going, which obviously Leno, as we've seen compared to Cech, is a lot more comfortable doing. And if you look at how Leno is and Cech is, it's the same sort of similarity in how our centre-backs are in comparison to Rob Holding. Cech is the Socrates, the Mustafi, the Koscielny. Leno is Holding. So can you see where I'm coming from, George?
No, absolutely. I mean, the way that I think we play the best is actually not when teams sit off us. It's actually when teams come and press us, because what that does is it allows us to play. If we play the ball at the back and we're being pressed, we start playing the ball faster, and that gives space into forward areas where we can break faster. And Rob Holding is very, very, very important in that.
Adding to what you said about the pressing, that's also where someone like Danny Welbeck comes on. And this is something that I said quite a lot on Arsenal Fan TV last season. I got a lot of stick for. But Danny Welbeck, his impact off the bench is not goal scoring. The way he's at his best is because he comes on, because he offers that different attacking option. He spreads out play. And by spreading out the play, by hugging the wing and keeping himself wide to cause havoc for the other defenders, that allows a Mesut Ozil or an Aaron Ramsey or an Alex Iwobi to have that time to think of a perfect pass and implement that pass into one of our strikers who can then throw it in goal. Because rather than being compact at the back like other teams are, if you were to bring on a team that park the bus, if you bring on Welbeck into a team that parks the bus, he will spread them out to allow that kind of penetration of the ball to get through the other team's defence. And that's why Danny Welbeck was so key. It's not that he's so talented and gifted, it's that he allows us as a team to get the best out of the rest of our players. And one time that it has been seen without in the season is when we played Spurs at home in the 4-2. And what was so influential about Emery that game, and one thing that I do think about Emery is that this season he's made some tactical masterclasses and he's also made some tactical errors. But against Spurs, it was a masterclass. We were obviously 2-1 down. Obviously, we went 1-0 up with Aubameyang's penalty, and then Harry Kane and Dyer scored to make it 2-1. And what he did was he brought on Ramsey and Lacazette. And the way that they played was this, and it was very similar to City in that season, the 13-14 season, when they had Aguero and Negredo. where both strikers will start out as basically kind of like wingers in a way, and they were cut in as two central strikers.
Yeah,
And
they
we
were
did that
starting out
with,
as wide forwards.
exactly. We did that with Ramsey and Aubameyang Lacazette, where Ramsey would be able to put the perfect ball in, but Aubameyang Lacazette were doing that sort of role as wide forwards, and it was so devastating to see. And similarly to that, when Aubameyang and Lacazette played together centrally, now not when Lacazette's up front and Aubameyang's on the left wing, because I personally don't think it works, because they need to be together as strikers to get the best out of them, out of each other, sorry, because of their partnership. Is that diamond 4-1-2-1-2 is perfect for that, because then you're allowing that sort of shape to drift that wide, push back in, and it works rather than have one sit in the middle, one sitting wide.
As much as 100%. As much as I agree about that with the squad that we have currently, for me, that's not the way Unai Emery works.
100%, I mean, we need a winger. I'm saying for this season, stuff like that
absolutely for this season, definitely. But if you look at Emery's PSG team, they played with a 4-3-3 with sort of Verratti and Matuidi sitting, and Rabiot sitting and Matuidi and Verratti in front. With his Valencia team, he had I think he had Enzo and Parejo as the deep midfielders, with Mina, Rodrigo, etc. in front. And then you see, I don't know, his Valencia team, which was very similar. It had a very stable base in midfield with sort of like three attacking players and a striker, which obviously doesn't suit Lacazette and Aubameyang. So for me, the way Unai works is he's more sort of concentrated on the system working than he is on, for example, an isolated player. So that's where I think, in my opinion, we've seen not much of Ozil, because maybe if he made every other player work for Ozil, and so Ozil will play well, that defeats the whole object of the system and the way that he wants his whole team to play. But yeah, no, I definitely do agree with the way that we should be playing this season, which is definitely accommodating Lacazette and Aubameyang, because obviously they are very, very prolific. And someone like Danny Welbeck coming on from the bench is a big miss. I mean, we miss him a lot. Because, I mean, I think it was against Cardiff. I know we ended up winning the game, but I don't think there were any strikers on the bench, any recognised strikers. So
that's because we lost Welbeck.
Obviously, yeah, that's because we lost Welbeck, and it doesn't look like he's given Nketiah a fair shot. So yeah, that's something that we do need to address in the summer, and I'm sure we will do.
And also, someone like Eddie Nketiah, he isn't the player you want coming off the bench when you need to score a goal. And that's no disrespect to Eddie, because I'm sure that he will be a top striker one day. And I think his failed move to Augsburg is going to actually significantly impact his career, because I think it would have done him the world of good. But we need a proper impact off the bench, and we don't have that right now.
I mean, yeah, someone experienced.
Been our major flaw,
I mean, what, at the end of the day,
he's
19.
Yeah, I mean, look, what's fair to say is we've always got a plan A, but we don't have that plan B. And where Emery was good when he had a full-strength squad is that he had a plan A and he had a plan B that he could push into very easily and have players he trusted for that plan B, and it would all kind of go hunky-dory, and we go off and win the game from that point. And I think the injuries that we've seen have gone and cost that. However, there have also been some very, very... And I understand that, yes, you shouldn't criticise Unai because it's his first season, but he's made some catastrophic errors this season. Like, for example, playing Koscielny as regularly as he has. Yes, he had a great game against Chelsea, but in all due respect to Laurent, he isn't that world-class centre-back anymore. Now, one thing I remember saying to you, Jordan, and a few others last season, is the reason why I think Mustafi looks so poor. And I'm not saying Mustafi's fantastic at all, but the reason why Mustafi seemed so poor was because we relied on Koscielny to do the same job he always had done. And because he couldn't, because of issues with his ankles prior to his injury at Atletico, Mustafi was essentially doing the job of two. And I think the same could be seen this season, because also Koscielny is not a leader. Socrates, out of all our centre-backs, is a leader. And the perfect player to play alongside him, who is a ball-carrying centre-back, is the only other one on our side. And I know this because I've watched him explicitly from the moment he joined the club and the youth team up until he broke into the first team in particular, is Konstantinos Mavropanos, who is fantastic on the ball, fantastic in the air, great intercepting. He has potential to be a world-class centre-back. And one thing about centre-backs, and this is, George, one thing that I remember we discussed a few days ago, and it's one thing that saw Rob Holding's development actually go slow down a bit under Arsene, is that defenders in particular, and to an extent midfielders, need consistency to know who their players are around them. And Emery has been tinkering a lot with the team. He'll at half time he'll do a change here, he'll change a formation 3 times, maybe even a game, and no one will really have a clue what's going on. And with centre backs in particular, they need to know their partner, so then they can actually, because they build that chemistry, then they know that they both have to stay in a line and they both follow each other, rather than one going forward and one staying back, but one fullback going forward and one staying back. That leaves a stage when you basically got like a zigzag of open opportunities in the back line. And to keep that solidity at the back, you need to have a level of consistency, because consistency is what brings chemistry, and obviously enables what a greater level of success at the back. And that's one thing where we've been, I think, very poor this season, because we don't have a starting centre back partnership.
No, I mean, absolutely,
even when holding.
I agree. Absolutely, I agree. But the problem that he's had, especially with someone like Mavropanos, is he's been injured for 4 months. He's only just come back, so you can't really throw him straight in at the deep end. He gave him 20 minutes in the game against City, and I think he'll slowly integrate him into games. But then you look at Socrates, and now he's out until the end of Feb. And
I mean, to be fair, that's not that many games.
Maybe not, but then Koscielny was coming back from a long-term injury, and then Holding was out for the whole season. So we've had. I mean, whilst I agree with you in the way that it's never good to change your back four if it's working, he hasn't been given a fair sort of shot, because he's kept on having to change his back four, and that's never or back five. That's never something that you want to do as a manager at all, because consistency, as you said, is the goal. But yeah, that's. I mean, and then you look at who we brought in as, I don't know, a right back replacement, and he's 30. Whilst I was not excited, but I was relatively happy when we signed him. Lichtsteiner, for me, only gives you quality off the pitch. On the pitch, not so much. And we were discussing this earlier. The fact that we're
as much off the pitch either.
Well, maybe not, but he's pushed on Bellerin, so he's done something for the club. I mean,
yeah, but you wouldn't know if that was his doing.
True.
It could be very there. That's just Unai Emery and Juan Carlos and the whole new setup. And if I tried to say the coaches' names, I wouldn't be able to do it anymore, because I wouldn't. But yeah, they are very different. And I think Lichtsteiner, it was a signing which made a lot of sense. A free player for a free player for 1 year with an option to extend for a second. The experience of Stefan Lichtsteiner made complete sense.
I mean, however, we all saw what he did against Spurs, and it made us want to sign him, I guess.
Yeah, but aside from all of that, one thing that I don't think wasn't taken into account was the fact that his age and his pace, and when you lose that bit of pace,
the Premier League.
Yeah, when you lose that pace as well, you don't think as fast, and it's like on the ball, it makes you struggle. And I think Lichtsteiner has been woeful, if I've got to be honest with you. And I'm not one to go and outright slag off players, but I just don't think he offers anything to the team. I think, yes, he may be experienced and he can give the players stick off the seam. At the same time, the sort of stuff I see him doing in a game, I don't want my players doing. I don't want my players getting little arguments, little fights, little like nippy or like verbal confrontations, even with linesmen and referees every game, and putting in stupid challenges and being a bit reckless. I don't think he plays with a level head, and I don't think that's something I want in the team. I want my team to be aggressive on the pitch, but to an extent, not aggressive.
No, I agree.
Punch up every 5 seconds, or look like they want to go and kill someone.
I agree. I mean, the point.
Putting in a well-thought challenge. For example, look at Granit Xhaka. At his early days, he was so reckless. And I know Xhaka gets a lot of stick, but look how he's toned himself down and he's back on track. I want aggression like Torreira, who's like a little terror, who's like a little pit bull. But he's always well-timed and well-thought when using such aggression. Not thinking I'm going to go kick out at Sterling, because I'm using this as a complete example. It's the first thing that kicked on my head of like a pacey, very, very top quality winger. But I'm going to go kick out at Sterling because sod it, he's annoying me, he's too quick for me, but I'm annoyed because I want to do better and I know I'm struggling, so I'm going to go take his ankles out. That's not Lichtsteiner, time in, time out, is giving away stupid fouls. And there's tactical fouls and there's playing like a moron, and I think he plays like a moron.
Yeah, it's timed aggression, really, assertion more than aggression that you want in your players, but he obviously hasn't really given it. But the point that I was trying to make was, when you're trying to, as much as I love Jenko with all my heart, and he's a massive gooner, when you're comparing Jenko with Lichtsteiner to play right back for Arsenal, that's when you've got to start asking questions. Because
Yeah, but
as
I'd
much as I love,
100% play Jenko, and I'd give. I also think
agreed.
Jenko would do wonders for us moving forward. I think Jenko, every time he's been called upon this season, has put in a shift. I think that he's been reliable. I think he's very good at crossing, and I think give him a run of games, he'll show his form. People need to remember he was very good at loan at West Ham, and when he was given a run of games at his early Arsenal career, he was consistent and he was good. He kept Sanya out the side when Sanya was injured. People
Agreed.
forget that. People look at Jenko and they look at the 8-2 and they take the mickey out of him. But he's also had a lot of injuries which have cost him time, which he actually had potential and still to an extent does to be a good footballer or squad player.
Agreed. No, I agree with that. That's the point I'm trying to make. He's good enough to be a squad player, but is he good enough to wear the number 2 shirt of Arsenal Football Club? And the answer is no. And that's
Bellerin's not fit. Bellerin being one of the best right backs in the Premier League. And I'm sorry, but Ainsley Maitland-Niles is a central midfielder. He's not a right back.
Agreed.
He should be a right back. Yes, he's the next best option that we have right now.
Yeah, that's the whole issue. Is that he's the next best option that we have right now.
But who's going to come in and want to be Bellerin's number 2? Because realistically, they will be. Bellerin is a world-class right back.
Well, firstly, I think it's a bit too hasty to jump to that conclusion. It's not a world-class right back yet. He's got the potential to be a world-class right back.
On the basis that there aren't that many right backs in the world of high quality.
But I'm sure there are young right backs who relish the chance to come to Arsenal and try and fight like Guendouzi has from Lorient in League Two. And now look at him now.
We're not giving the option. So, for example, one player in the youth ranks is Talaj Ebola.
He's also a left back, but yeah.
Left back. Sorry. But the point is, he's a full back, and he makes the same point where someone like, for example, Kolasinac maybe let's say he was out because Kolasinac injury prone. It's the same principle of a full back. We don't give them the options.
No, I agree, but the summer is where we need to sort of invest in players, and I'm sure we will do. So that is something that I think that we can do.
So based on what you said, before we move on to talk about City and Huddersfield, how would you like to review our signings that we've seen under the new Unai Emery? So that's talking about last summer, and obviously the window just gone. So the players obviously that have come in, Lucas Torreira, Bernd Leno, Matteo Guendouzi, Stefan Lichtsteiner, obviously Denis Suarez, and am I missing anyone out off the top of my head? Socrates, obviously Socrates.
Socrates, yeah, 40 million. To be honest, I think for the finances that he was given, he's done very well. I mean, Guendouzi's an absolute steal, and for me, in the last 5-6 games, even the whole season, he's been very consistent. I don't understand
he's been iffy this season. The last 6 games, he's been phenomenal, especially City.
For me, I don't understand the hate that he gets. He's 19 years old, and to come from the second division of French football to the Premier League and to be as composed and confident as he is on the ball and work as hard as he does off the ball, for me, you can't criticise him yet. I feel like he doesn't deserve it. So for me, great signing and great price. Torreira, absolutely love the guy, love the player, exactly what we've needed since, Vieira. So brilliant. Leno, I think
very good game against City.
Very good game against City, and was probably our man of the match along with Guendouzi. I think Leno is a better shot stopper and ball player than Cech. Maybe not as good shot stopper. I'll take that back, but I think he could be. And I think the only bit of his game where he really needs to improve is commanding his area from crosses, because that's where he looks a bit dodge. However, he's 26, 27, so look, in the eyes of a keeper, he's got time to improve, and I think he will do. Socrates, again, love him. The only criticism I would give for Socrates is he sometimes gets too tight to his player and gives away silly fouls. But I love his passion. I love that when he makes a tackle, he celebrates, and he looks like a leader. He looks like the obvious leader in my eyes. Who else am I missing? Obviously, we know what I think about Lichtsteiner.
He was the other one, obviously, yeah.
And the last one was I think that was everyone, was it not?
Yeah, so that was Denis Suarez.
Denis Suarez, right? We haven't seen Denis Suarez. I don't know why people are jumping to conclusions. I mean, I watch Barcelona every day, every game because I'm just a massive Messi fan. And
For
although he
which
doesn't
can I
start,
say, Forza Barca for the El Clasico tonight.
absolutely, and although he doesn't start for them, when he does come on, he looks like he's a very, very techie footballer. He's got good technique, he's got good vision, he's a dribbler, which I know Emery likes, and I think we've got to give him a chance. He won the Europa League with Emery at Sevilla, was it? And so, yeah, I think it's very, very early to judge on what Dennis will bring to the team. But I'm excited to see it. He looks good. He looks good. But yeah, to me that's how I view all the transfers. Although I would say it hasn't been enough, obviously, to get us to compete. But I know we need to give Emery and Raul a few more, which I'm sure they'll start spending. What about yourself?
Look, I think Bernd Leno has allowed us to play a new system and to play it with confidence. I think he will be a fantastic goalkeeper, and he's on the way to doing so. I think that Socrates has been just unbelievable for us in terms of that oomph and that solidity that he's given the team, and that fighting spirit. Like seeing him celebrate a tackle is just I love. I think Torreira is just what we've been begging for years and needed. I think Guendouzi is a steal, as you said. I don't think you could have summed him up any better. Lichtsteiner we discussed, and Suarez it's too late to see. However, I do think he does look a little bit weak, but that's nothing a couple of extra gym sessions can't fix. What would you? How would you? So obviously on the weekend we lost to City. It was a weird one that because we came out very, very poorly. I think Iwobi doesn't deserve a lot of the stick he's getting. I think people need to respect the fact that he's actually one of our most improved players this season. People need to stop overlooking their demand for why is he not in the starting. And then suddenly when he has one mistake, cussing him. One thing I've seen in the away end is that Iwobi can hit the post from 30 yards and he'll still get abuse. And it seems like it's got more of a racial agenda, or just because they can, because it's an easy scapegoat that he receives such stick. But yeah, apart from that, I think we came out fighting after we went 1-0 down. I think the goal at 2-1 didn't necessarily kill the game because it was just before half time, but it demoralised the team a bit. However, the third goal, I think, killed it off. I think if that third goal was disallowed as it rightly should have been, I think that would have given that we would have had more chance to maybe even get a draw, get a 2-2, nick a goal back. But I think at that point it was 3-1 away at City and the players kind of felt killed off, which is obviously not a great mentality to show. But then again, when you don't have a verbal captain on the pitch, what can you expect? Obviously that because lacking Granit Xhaka and lacking Socrates and whatnot. I think the game was... I think that's the best way to sum it up, really. I think we look good in some areas and some not. I think also Mesut Ozil, do I think that him and Emery have an issue? No, I don't. Opinion wise, I think they have some. I think Emery's trying to give Ozil a bit of a kick up the arse to basically bulk himself up and get himself back on track. Do I see Ozil there? Do I see there's more that there could be more to the eye than what's seen? 100%. I think a lot of our fans are more, in all due respect, and I'm not putting anyone down, but a bit just more jealous and perturbed that Ozil's getting 350 grand a week, without looking at the reality that he is a world-class footballer and the best that we have, despite the fact he may not be in the greatest form. And that's also because of lack of consistency. I think that he, this is obviously just my own opinion and speculation, but and as George will be able to say from his own experience, the issues of back injuries and how crazy they can be. That's one thing. The other thing is people need to realise that for all you know, Ozil could just be suffering with mental health issues following the whole fiasco with the German national team and the racism scandal that he witnessed in the summer. You never know. And that could be the reason, and they're very quick to jump to a conclusion which they don't really have any background, but they're like confirming it's Emery and him hate each other, and that's so not the case. People need to remember that up until around Bournemouth, around December, no, up around like November, December, Ozil was starting week in, week out, and was our most games was our captain. And when he comes back, he's then our captain. So why would you give a player that you can't stand the captaincy? Like, there's so much to it which just doesn't make sense, that I think people are very quick to jump the gun, and the media as well are feeding off it because they know how easy our fan base are to it's clickbait. But it's very easy to say we're getting rid of Ozil in the summer, and Emery twisted this to say this. no one on good authority has said a thing. And people are just jumping to conclusions because they get money out of clicks. And I think it's despicable behaviour from the media. And I think it's very wrong to jump to a conclusion in terms of how people have reacted with it. And yeah, that's how I sum up City and obviously our players and whatnot. George, what about you?
So I'll talk about Ozil and Iwobi afterwards. I'll talk purely about the game against City. I feel like Emery had a game plan. And I feel like sometimes, firstly, because we had no Xhaka, and secondly, because of the lack of quality we have at the back, I think he felt that he has to overcompensate at the back, which is why I think he played 5. Yeah. I also feel that Kolasinac down the left side offers us a lot of quality, inconsistent quality, and we can create sort of overlaps down that left-hand side, and it's been sort of quite devastating at some points during the season. But I feel like that game plan was wiped out due to very, very, very sloppy, silly, inexperienced football by Iwobi. Now, we did very, very well to get back into that game. And for a 10-minute spell after we scored, we looked like we were capable of doing some damage. But the quality in the final third, as it has been for a lot of the season, has not been good enough, and was not good enough. I also think that City are streets ahead of us. Pep is streets ahead of everyone, and let's remember that City, Pep's in his fourth season at City, so they are a lot further along their transition than we are. So most likely they're going to be better than us. I'm not saying that we couldn't have won the game because Newcastle beat them, Crystal Palace went there and beat them. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but to me, we just weren't good enough to win the game. And I said this to you during the game and after the game. Their back only four, which consisted of Fernandinho, Otamendi, Laporte, and was it Walker, cost £169.5 million, whereas our back 5 cost £55 million, and 35 million of that was for Mustafi, who, let's be honest, is not worth 35 million. So although I agree in the sense that money doesn't always buy quality, there's obviously something there that says the more you spend, the more likely you are to be better. And they have spent a lot of money and have a great coach and are better than us and deserve to win, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. I feel like, going back to Iwobi, I feel like he does get criticism of which he probably doesn't deserve. But the thing that I have with Iwobi, I quite like Iwobi. I think he's 22. He's 22. He's positive. He tries hard. He works hard off the ball. He's very good off the ball, and he actually has improved technically this season as well. And he's been given a lot.
100%.
He's given a lot more responsibility in this team. He's done more. Given more assists, more goals, more key passes, etc. However, the thing is, in my opinion, is the main criteria for a professional football at the highest level is consistency. And in my opinion, Iwobi is not consistent enough, especially in the final third, to start the game for Arsenal Football Club in the coming years. I feel like he could get to that level, but if you compare him to to a player of the same age in Leroy Sané, the quality that they have in the final third is incomparable. And that's the only thing that I would say about Iwobi. Moving on to Mesut Ozil. Now, obviously a very, very controversial topic. Now, I sort of go up and down with Ozil because the most frustrating thing about Mesut Ozil is we all know that on his day, he is a world-class, top-quality, technically gifted footballer. However, I sort of split footballers into 4 main categories. That is how technically gifted they are, how physically gifted they are, how mentally gifted they are, and how consistent they are. Now, to me, Mesut Ozil is more technically gifted than anyone in the team, and he's up there with the most technically gifted players in the league. Mentally, I'm not sure that he's there, especially with what's happened with Germany. Physically, he's definitely not there, and consistency, in my opinion, has not been for the time that he's been at Arsenal. So with me, it's always I know what Mesut Ozil can do, and that's what frustrates me the most about him. But in the same context, the way Unai loves to play is he loves players that work off the ball and are clever off the ball. And in my opinion, although he may have the running stats to show that he runs a lot, for me it's not how much you run, it's how you run. Because if you ask the average Arsenal fan, who did you prefer whilst defending, Mesut Ozil or Alexis Sanchez? They'll say Alexis Sanchez because he worked his butt off the ball. If you compare the running stats, Mesut Ozil actually ran more than Alexis Sanchez, I think, in Alexis's last full season at the club. So for me, it's not how much you run, it's more how you run. And for me, Ozil doesn't do that well enough. And that's why I don't think he's trusted him this season. I feel like, yes, he has had a back injury. I've got a back injury myself, so I understand. And I have sciatica like Mesut Ozil, and I know the pains that he must be going through. But is he the guy that's going to win us titles? In my opinion, no. So if we lost him to me and built something that a player that gives us more of the other three qualities and maybe worse technically but still technically gifted, it wouldn't be the end of the world, in my opinion. That's my take on Mesut Ozil. Like someone, if you compare him and Iwobi, obviously,
I think Ozil's probably a good debate to have it in length on our next podcast.
Maybe. Agreed. All right.
Because it's a very complex topic, and we could go on about it for hours. Because I know that you are very, obviously you put your stance clear, but obviously I'm Ozil in. And yeah, so perfect. So yeah, I think we've covered everything that we need to.
Should we quickly speak about Huddersfield or?
Yeah. So basically, so in regards to Huddersfield, yeah. So I've lost my track.
No worries.
Full on ADHD. I've just recorded. I've obviously got ADHD. Hell of an ADHD moment. Huddersfield.
We're going away to Huddersfield. They're bottom of the league.
Don't write them off because we know what we're like away from home.
Absolutely,
we're very shaky back.
We definitely can't write them off, but it's a must win game for us if we want any chance of being in the top four, which I think are very slim at this point.
I think we got a chance. I think our run-in's why we got a chance. We just got to go basically and play a proper system at the back, play properly, and play our best 11, which is at the moment. I'd probably play Ozil against Team Huddersfield. I'd play Diamond, Ozil at 10, Lacazette, Orberg, Torreira, Guendouzi.
I'd definitely play one of Ozil or Ramsey. We need that creative spark. Well, it just sort of depends what sort of game you want. Well, Ozil's a better player on the ball, in my opinion. Agreed. But off the ball is where he lacks, and I think maybe Ramsey gives you that in abundance compared to Ozil. But saying that, if you have Xhaka, who I think could be back, not 100% sure, Torreira and Guendouzi off the ball, maybe you can afford to carry someone like Ozil and have Lacazette and Aubameyang in front of him. So look, I'm quite positive about the game, but we just need to get the 3 points and bring it back to London.
I couldn't agree more with you, George. I think we just got to not underestimate the team that Huddersfield are, because obviously that cost us deeply in the past. And I think that on that note, should wrap up the podcast for today. I think that it's been an excellent one. And I think that moving forward, it shows that this podcast will just get bigger and better. If anybody of the listeners are good with editing and audio, obviously me and George are very, 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 very poor technologically. But yeah, get involved. And yeah, we're going to hopefully have an introductory audio tape put in at the beginning. Obviously, going "We all follow the Arsenal over land and sea." Bear in mind the name is "We all follow the Arsenal," and we're going to we're going to keep this to once to twice in some weeks a week. We're going to review, preview, as said, and if there's a particular development at the club or in terms of just something that's broken to the news, or there's a big talking point, then obviously we'll chuck in as an extra special.
Obviously, both of us are very new to this, so for any of you watching, if you want to drop your comments, we're more than happy to respond and sort of keep the communication between viewer and us regular.
No, exactly, and we also get reviewers on at points and whatnot. It's a very open discussion platform. We just want to just discuss Arsenal, thing we love the most, and also one thing that I've been asked a lot is why I haven't been Arsenal fan TV recently. The answer is this: I am at UCFB, as I've said, sports business uni, and I want to just want to be myself there for the meantime and settle in and whatnot. And I didn't want to have the distraction of all that sort of stuff going at the time. In terms of the plug AFC, as I'm sure people have got the gist by now, and if they haven't, then I'm sorry, but it's been very clear. Due to reasons which I'll discuss in a later podcast, that to an extent is now not happening. However, what is happening is that I will be giving my opinion on Arsenal matters, on Arsenal deals. I still talk about transfers, and I will give my sort of educational academic understanding on how stuff is done with deals and whatnot. But it will be very much opinion based unless I'm given something of concrete and worth speaking about to tweet. However, due to, as I said, due to reasons which I'll get on shortly, that is it's not over for good. It's on the back burner at the moment. And it's all since the summer, it's all been very, very more opinion based rather than everything else, which I've tried to make clear to stop any confusion. That wraps it up. Thanks for listening to We All Follow the Arsenal podcast. On to next time. Hopefully we can get this out without any issues, and I hope this is recorded properly. Cheers everyone for listening. Cheers. Thank you, George. It's been a pleasure. On to next week.
Thank you very much. See you next week.